The AOC C3583FQ is one of this new breed of massive curved ultra-wide monitors, but unlike most it uses a high-speed 160Hz MVA gaming panel rather than an IPS display. Along with the inclusion of FreeSync, this makes it potentially the ultimate gamer's monitor upgrade. What's more, it only costs £500, which compares to around £650 for the same style monitor with an IPS panel. There is, however, one massive compromise with this display, but I'll get to that shortly. Right off the bat, it's obvious where some of the money has been saved in comparison to those £650 displays. The bezel here is quite wide and sticks out from the screen, whereas on the Philips BDM3490UC for instance, it's really thin and sits flush with the screen. Also, while the stand looks like it's finished in brushed metal and has a polished stainless steel stem, both are in fact plastic, the latter having a thin chromed finish to give it a really shiny look. In terms of features, you also miss out on a USB hub and there's no height adjustment either, though in fairness the more expensive curved screens lack this too. So what do you get? Well, you get a massive curved 35-inch MVA LCD panel that absolutely fills your vision if you sit the normal 50cm or so away from it. Some people are not fussed about curved screens, but I do like them. With TVs it doesn't work all that well, but with these widescreen monitors that you sit close to, it brings that extra width into your peripheral vision. The C3583FQ also has loads of connectivity with 2 display ports and 2 HDMI ports, one of which supports MHL for easy connection to your phone. You also get a DVI and a VGA port for those that still use such things. There are also 3.5mm jack sockets for audio input and headphones. Any audio coming in via HDMI display port should play automatically, but you'll need the audio in for the DVI and VGA inputs. The monitor has a pair of speakers that are nicely hidden away in the incredibly shiny plastic back. They sound pretty good. There's obviously not too much bass, but they're reasonably clear and loud. You'll just need to make sure you plan to have the monitor backed up against the wall, otherwise the audio will just disappear behind the screen. Setting this monitor up is simple enough thanks to it arriving in one piece. However, the lack of height adjustment is an issue, as the monitor isn't all that tall to begin with, despite it being so big overall. I had to resort to using a book or two to get it to sit at a comfortable height. This is doubly important as these curved monitors do require you to sit fairly central to get the benefit. You can angle the screen up to achieve the same effect, but ideally you want to be looking straight ahead. The on-screen menus that are used to set up the screen are okay, but the corresponding touch controls that run along the front of the base are not the easiest to use. The buttons don't align with what's on the screen and it's all too easy to hit the wrong one. It's also annoying that you can't select the sRGB colour option and then adjust brightness, because that option is almost spot on for colour temperature, gamma and other such settings, but is far too bright. Instead I had to use the manual colour settings, and here I found the screen needed a massive boost in the blue channel to get the right colour balance, and even then it wasn't perfect. Otherwise though, with a bit of tinkering the screen does offer good overall image quality. You get a nice strong contrast ratio of 1813:1 and 99.5% coverage of the sRGB colour space. Viewing angles are mostly decent too. The image looks a little duller when viewed from above, but largely colour and contrast stay accurate from within the normal field of view. As for that high-speed 160Hz refresh rate, it wasn't quite as impactful as I'd hoped. The MVA LCD technology, although it offers better image quality than TN versions, seems inherently less quick to turn off. So while the image does update quicker than a typical 60Hz screen, the lingering image makes it look like there's a constant motion blur effect on. It's definitely an improvement over 60Hz displays, but I never got the same sense of super snappy response that I felt from the best gaming monitors. As for FreeSync, or Adaptive Sync as it's more generically known, if you're not sure what it is, I've left a link in the description below to an article that describes it. For those who are familiar, here the impact is of less importance than you might expect. Because the monitor only takes around 6 milliseconds to update each frame, any stutter from repeated frames is far less noticeable, and thus the benefit of FreeSync is negligible. This compares to a 60Hz monitor, where each frame lasts 16 milliseconds, and so stutter is that much more obvious. So overall FreeSync is nice to have, but it's of far less importance than on 60Hz screens. All of which brings us to the biggest problem with this monitor, which is its resolution. It only has 2560 by 1080 pixels, which may sound like quite a lot, but on a screen this big it results in a pixel density of just 79 pixels per inch. That means everything just looks a little too pixelated when sat at a normal viewing distance. If you sit back, obviously everything smooths out a bit, but then not only does the screen feel less of your vision, but you're negating the point of having a curved screen as you're no longer sat in its sweet spot. You can certainly get by with this resolution, and if your eyesight isn't that great to start with, then you may welcome it, but for me it's a deal breaker. For the resolution used here, the screen doesn't need to be this big, and the curve is of limited benefit too. That said, if all you want is a massive curved screen for gaming, then the C3583FQ does work, and it offers reasonable value. but for many users that resolution is going to be just too much of a compromise.